Welcome to Crossdressing Stories. Here, we share personal stories, celebrate self-expression. If you're on your own journey or simply curious, you've found your community. Subscribe and join the conversation.
It all started with a sound. Not a bang, not a whisper, but a click. The kind of insignificant, everyday sound your thumb makes on a mouse button. A sound you've heard a million times and forgotten a million more. But this one was different. This click was the starting pistol for the end of my life as I knew it. One single, stupid, thoughtless click. And my world, my body, my very self, would never, ever be the same again. There I was, 16 years old, sprawled on the worn-out beanbag chair in my room. A fortress of solitude built from dirty laundry, empty soda cans, and the faint, ever-present scent of teenage boy. My name was Andy. Andrew Michael Thompson. To be exact, I was a solid 6 feet tall, all awkward angles and gangly limbs, with a mop of brown hair that was always in my eyes, and a voice that was still deciding whether it wanted to be a man's or a boy's. My universe was my monitor. My gods were game developers, and my holy scripture was the chatter on my Discord server. Life was simple. It was mine. The door to my sanctuary burst open, slamming against the wall with a force that made my empty cans rattle in protest. Erica, my sister, 20 years old, a force of nature wrapped in a college student's body, and currently, a hurricane of pure, unadulterated fury. He did it. Andy, the absolute grade A, world-class scumbag, actually did it, she seethed, pacing back and forth on the small patch of visible carpet. Her phone was clutched in her hand like a weapon. I didn't even pause my game. Did what forget to text you back within the contractually obligated 5-minute window, I mumbled. My eyes locked on the screen as I flanked an enemy position. He cheated on me, she yelled. The words hit with enough force that I actually did pause the game. I swiveled my chair around to look at her. Her face was blotchy, mascara running in thin, black rivers down her cheeks. This was serious. Brad cheated, I asked, a little stunned. Brad was Erica's boyfriend of 2 years, a handsome, popular, quarterback of the football team cliché who I privately thought was a complete tool, but who Erica seemed to worship. With Sarah Jenkins, I saw the pictures on her private story. They were at the Cove, all over each other. She shoved her phone in my face. I squinted at the tiny blurry image of Brad with his arms slung around a blonde I vaguely recognized from school. Ouch, I said. Because what else could I say? I'm sorry, he's a jerk. A jerk is someone who cuts you off in traffic. Andy, This is biblical. I gave him 2 years of my life. She flopped onto my bed, the fury collapsing into a heap of miserable sobs. I felt a pang of actual sympathy. I wasn't always the most emotionally available brother, but this was my sister. I got up and sat next to her, patting her back awkwardly. Hey, it's okay. You'll find someone better. Someone who doesn't peak in high school. She sniffled, wiping her nose on her sleeve. I don't want someone better. I want revenge. Her eyes, red and swollen, suddenly glinted with a terrifying kind of focus. I want to ruin him. I want to break his heart into a million tiny pieces and then stomp on them with stilettos. Okay, let's maybe dial back the homicidal imagery, I suggested. We could egg his car, TP his house, the classics. No, she said, her voice dropping to a conspiratorial whisper. That's kid stuff. I need something surgical, something that gets right into his head. She sat up straight, a slow, predatory smile spreading across her face. It was the kind of smile that made you want to check if all your possessions were still where you left them. And you, little brother, are going to help me. Whoa, hold on, I said, putting my hands up. Count me out. This is your drama. I have a raid in 45 minutes. Oh, you'll want to be a part of this," she said, her smile widening. She pulled up something on her phone. It looked like the download page for an app. The icon was a sleek chrome butterfly. The name was simply Metamorph. "What is that, some kind of new filter?" I asked, unimpressed. "Not a filter," she said, her voice giddy. "It's more. A friend of mine in a coding program sent it to me. It's experimental, super beta. It's supposed to be the next leap in augmented reality, but it does more than that. It supposedly interacts with your body's biosignature, rewrites it temporarily based on the app's parameters." I stared at her. "You've been watching too much sci-fi. That's not real." "Isn't it?" she challenged, holding the phone out to me. "There's only one way to find out. Brad has a type. You know, he's a sucker for the new girl. The mysterious, beautiful girl no one's ever seen before. He falls for it every single time. He likes a conquest." A cold dread started to pool in my stomach. "Erica, what are you suggesting?" "I'm suggesting," she said, her eyes gleaming, "that you become the girl of his dreams. You get him to fall for you, head over heels. You let him worship you. And then, when he's completely hooked, you utterly destroy him. You rip his heart out and show it to him. It's perfect." I laughed, a nervous, high-pitched sound. "You're insane. That's the stupidest plan I've ever heard. First of all, I'm me. Look at me. I'm not a girl. Second, even if this magic app worked, I wouldn't do it. No way." "Oh, come on, Andy. Don't be a coward. It's just for a little while. A week. Maybe 2. Think of it as an acting challenge. Plus," she added, her voice turning sly, "I know you've been wanting that new graphics card. The RTX 4090, consider it yours if you do this for me." My resolve wavered. That card was the holy grail. It was $1,000 I absolutely did not have. But still. "No, it's crazy, and it's weird," I said, shaking my head. "Is it, or are you just scared?" she taunted. "Scared to see what it's like on the other side. Scared to be pretty for once." That stung. "It's just a joke. Andy, a prank. What's the harm you click a button? We have a laugh. And you click it off. Easy." She was relentless. She painted a picture of Brad's utter humiliation, of our triumphant victory. She framed it as the ultimate prank, the stuff of legend. And slowly, stupidly, my skepticism started to get worn down by her sheer force of will and the dangling promise of that graphics card. What was the worst that could happen? It was a phone app. It would probably just put some glitter on my face and pitch up my voice for a recording. A dumb party trick. "Fine," I sighed, snatching the phone from her. "Fine, just to prove to you how stupid this is. I'll do it. Let's see your magic app." Her face lit up with a victory so complete it was unnerving. "Excellent." I looked at the screen. The interface was minimalist. Just a silhouette of a person and a single, glowing button that said Activate. Beneath it were a few sliders, already set. Feminine, youthful, attractive. "This is ridiculous," I muttered, positioning my thumb over the button. I looked at Erica. She was watching me with an intensity that should have been my final warning. "Just a click, Andy," she urged, her voice soft and hypnotic. "One click, and you can make your big sister very, very happy." I rolled my eyes. Whatever. And I pressed it. Click. For a second. Nothing happened. I felt a smug "I told you so" forming on my lips. "See nothing. Your coder friend is probably laughing his I never finished the sentence. A wave of dizziness washed over me so intensely, I had to grip the edge of my desk to stay upright. It felt like the world was tilting on its axis. A strange, tingling sensation, like 1,000 tiny needles, erupted all over my skin, starting from my toes and racing upwards. It wasn't painful, but it was overwhelming. I felt a deep seismic shifting inside me, a bizarre pulling and rearranging in my very bones. My throat seized up. I tried to gasp for air, but the sound that came out wasn't my own. It was a high, breathy sound, like a startled gasp from a girl. What the hell? I tried to say, but the words came out wrong. They were lighter, softer, melodic. My own voice was gone. The tingling intensified. I watched in utter, paralyzing horror as my hands, resting on my desk, seemed to shrink. My knuckles softened. My fingers elongated and grew slender. The calluses from years of guitar playing and gaming just melted away, leaving behind skin that was smooth and pale. "Erica!" I whimpered, the name sounding alien in my new voice. I felt a sudden, sharp pressure in my chest, a blossoming fullness that made my t-shirt feel impossibly tight, my waist cinched, my hips flared outwards with a soft, unsettling pop. I could literally feel my center of gravity shifting. I was shrinking, my 6-foot frame compacting downwards by a good 5 or 6 inches. My worn-out jeans felt looser at the waist but tighter around my thighs. My baggy hoodie suddenly felt drapey, elegant. My hair, I felt a strange weight on my head, and I reached up to touch it. My short, messy brown mop was gone. In its place, a cascade of soft, silky strands tumbled past my shoulders, past my chest, all the way down to the middle of my back. I grabbed a fistful of it and brought it in front of my face. It wasn't brown, it was blonde, a bright, sunny, shimmering gold. "No," I whispered. "No, no, no." Erica was no longer smiling. She was watching me with a look of cold, clinical assessment. "It worked even better than I thought," she murmured, almost to herself. She walked over to the full-length mirror leaning against my wall, the one I only ever used to make sure I didn't have food on my face. She turned it to face me. "Look," she commanded. I didn't want to. I was terrified of what I'd see. But my body, this new, strange body, seemed to move on its own. It turned, slowly, to face the reflection, and my breath caught in my throat. The person in the mirror wasn't me. It couldn't be me. Staring back at me was a girl, a breathtakingly beautiful girl. She had large, doe-like blue eyes, a small upturned nose dusted with a faint spray of freckles, and full, pink lips parted in a look of stunned disbelief. Her face was heart-shaped, framed by that impossible river of golden blonde hair. Her body, even hidden under my ridiculous old clothes, was undeniably feminine. A slim waist, gently curving hips, and a chest that was now straining against the fabric of my faded video game t-shirt. She was me, but reshaped, refined, and utterly, terrifyingly transformed into a stranger. "No, this isn't possible," I stammered, the sweet lilting voice making the words sound like a plea. Erica stepped up behind the reflection, her grin returning, sharp and cruel. She put her hands on the stranger's shoulders, on my shoulders. "Welcome to the world of women, little brother," she purred, her eyes meeting mine in the mirror. Or should I say, Crystal. The name hit me like a physical blow. "Crystal, no, I'm Andy. My name is Andy Erica. What did you do to me?" My voice rose, but it didn't crack with rage like it should have. It became a high, panicked shriek. Erica just shrugged, her expression unmoved. "This is how you're going to help me get back at Brad. It's simple, really. You are going to become his dream girl. You're going to make him fall completely in love with you, so obsessed he can't think straight. And then, you're going to kick him to the curb so hard he'll feel it in his soul. Easy, right?" I wanted to fight. I wanted to scream and rage and break something. I wanted to grab her and shake her until she turned me back. I was trapped. I was a prisoner in a body that felt both intimately mine and horrifyingly alien. But as my eyes, these new, wide, blue eyes, scanned my reflection again, a different thought, a treacherous and terrifying thought, slithered into my mind, silencing the panic for a heart-stopping second. My God, I was beautiful. And that single, awful realization scared me more than anything else. The initial shock was a tidal wave, but the minutes that followed were a slow, creeping flood of horror. I couldn't stop staring at the mirror. I'd touch my face, and the girl in the reflection would mimic the motion, her slender fingers tracing the line of a jaw that was no longer mine. I'd turn my head, and the cascade of blonde hair would swish and sway with a life of its own. It was a macabre, mesmerizing dance. Part of my brain, the logical part, was screaming that this was a hallucination, a prank, a waking nightmare. But the evidence was overwhelming. The feel of my own skin was different, softer, smoother, almost poreless. The air felt different in my lungs. The very weight of my body was wrong. "Turn me back," I said, my voice barely a whisper. It came out sounding pleading and weak. The Andy I knew would have been shouting. "Not a chance," Erica said crisply, already moving around the room with purpose. She started rummaging through a large duffel bag she must have brought in with her. "The revenge plot is officially a go. Operation Heartbreak is afoot." Operation Heartbreak. "Are you 12?" I shot back, but the insult lacked any venom. It sounded more like a pout. "And we can't have Brad's dream girl showing up to the biggest party of the semester dressed in your..." She gestured vaguely at my clothes. "That?" She wrinkled her nose in disgust. From the bag, she pulled out a small, scandalous-looking pile of black fabric. She tossed it onto the bed. It landed with a soft, delicate rustle. Lace. It was black lace. "What is that?" I asked, though I had a sickeningly good idea. "Your starter kit," she announced. "Put it on." I looked from the lacy confection on my bed to her face. She was completely serious. It was a matching set of underwear. A bra and panties. The bra was all intricate webbing and sheer panels, held together by what looked like impossibly thin straps. The panties were a tiny triangle of silk and lace that looked like it would cover absolutely nothing. "No," I said, the word feeling foreign and defiant on my new tongue. "Absolutely not. I am not wearing that. This whole thing is insane. Change me back. Erica. Now." I tried to inject my voice with the authority I used to have, the deep rumble that could end an argument, but it just came out as a high-pitched demand. And Erica just laughed. It was a sharp, dismissive sound that made me feel small and powerless. "Oh, Andy, you still think you have a choice in the matter," she said, crossing her arms. "You think being a girl is all about looking pretty and getting what you want. Let me give you your first lesson. It's not. It's about doing 1,000 things you don't want to do. Every single day, just to meet the bare minimum of expectations. So consider this your orientation. Now put on the damn lingerie. On the..." I stared at the black lace. It seemed to mock me from the bed. My mind was screaming every curse word I knew. This was a violation. It was humiliating. But my hand was already reaching for it, as if drawn by some invisible string. I picked up the bra. It was lighter than I expected. The lace surprisingly soft against my fingertips, not scratchy like I'd imagined. It felt delicate, expensive, and utterly alien. I held it up. I had no idea how it worked. It was a contraption of straps, hooks, and underwire that looked like something designed by a sadist. I don't know how," I confessed, my face burning with shame. Erica sighed, a long-suffering sound. "Of course you don't. You think these things just magically appear on us here." She came over, snatched it from my hand, and turned me around so my back was to her. Arms through the straps. I reluctantly obeyed, slipping my now slender arms into the loops. The fabric felt cool against my skin. She pulled the band tight around my chest, and I heard the faint click as she fastened the tiny hooks in the back. Then she reached around and adjusted the straps on my shoulders, pulling them taut, the underwire. A rigid curve of metal I never knew existed, pressed firmly against my ribs, lifting and shaping the new, sensitive flesh of my chest. The sensation was bizarre. It was constricting, confining, but also supportive. It was a strange, intimate embrace that made me acutely aware of the new contours of my body. I shivered, a full-body tremor of revulsion and a spark of something else. Something I couldn't, or wouldn't, name. "There," she said, her work complete. "Now the panties." I looked down at the scrap of silk and lace. I swallowed hard. This was somehow worse. Taking off my jeans and boxers felt like shedding the last piece of who I was. The room was suddenly cold. I stood there in my nerdy t-shirt and the black lace bra, feeling more exposed than if I'd been completely naked. With trembling fingers, I took the panties. The silk was cool and smooth, sliding against my skin like water. It felt wrong. It was too thin, too delicate. There was nothing to it. I pulled them on, the unfamiliar shape settling against me. The sensation of the soft fabric in places it had no business being, making me want to crawl out of my own skin. "See, not so hard," Erica said, her voice devoid of sympathy. She surveyed me critically. "Okay, t-shirt off." I peeled the shirt over my head, the motion feeling awkward with my new center of gravity. And there I was, standing in the middle of my own bedroom, in a black lace bra and panties. The reflection in the mirror was a complete stranger, a slender, pale girl with wide, terrified eyes and a cascade of blonde hair. The black lace starkly contrasted with my pale skin, framing curves that hadn't existed an hour ago. It looked intentional. It looked like a lingerie model from a magazine. And it was me. The cognitive dissonance was so strong it made me feel nauseous. "Now for the fun part," Erica declared, pulling a dress from her bag. It was a deep sapphire blue, made of a slinky, clinging fabric, a cocktail dress. It was short, dangerously short. "This should fit you perfectly now." She held it out. I took it. The fabric was heavy and cool, pooling in my hands. I stepped into it and pulled it up. It slid over my hips, hugging them tightly, and zipped up the back with a soft zip. The dress was like a second skin. It dipped low in the front, showcasing the cleavage the bra had so expertly created, and the hemline ended what felt like inches below the lacy edge of the panties. I felt utterly, completely exposed. "Turn around," she commanded. I did, a slow, robotic rotation. "Perfect," she breathed. "Brad won't know what hit him." Next came the stockings. Not pantyhose, but thigh-high stockings, made of sheer black nylon. They came with a matching garter belt, another complex-looking harness of straps and clips. "You have got to be kidding me," I said, my voice cracking. "Do I look like I'm kidding?" she replied, handing them to me. "Real girls know the difference. Pantyhose are for your grandmother. Stockings are for making a statement." The process was agonizingly intimate. I sat on the edge of my bed, and she showed me how to attach the garter belt around my newly slim waist. Then, I took the first stocking. The nylon was impossibly soft and delicate. I bunched it up, just like I'd seen in movies, and carefully slipped my toes in, slowly rolling it up my leg. The sensation was electric. The thin fabric whispered against my skin, a cool, smooth caress that made the tiny hairs on my legs, or where hairs used to be, stand on end. My legs, now long, shapely, and completely hairless, looked incredible in the sheer black. It was like they belonged to someone else, an actress or a model. I did the other leg, then fumbled with the little clips, attaching the top of the stockings to the garter belt straps. The gentle pull of the straps was another alien sensation, a constant reminder of the artifice I was now wearing. "Now, the final test," Erica said. and my eyes fell upon her last offering. The shoes. They were heels, black, patent leather stilettos with a heel that had to be at least 4 inches high. They were more of a weapon than footwear. "No, no way," I said, shaking my head. "I'll break my ankle." "You'll learn," she said simply. "All girls do. We don't get a choice. You want to look good. You suffer. That's the deal." I reluctantly slipped my feet into them. They were a perfect, snug fit. The arch of my foot was forced into a severe, unnatural angle. All my weight was pitched forward onto the balls of my feet. It was instant pain. I stood up, wobbling precariously. I felt like I was on stilts. "Okay, now walk," Erica instructed, a smirk playing on her lips. "Just to the door and back." I took a hesitant step. My ankle immediately buckled, and I would have face-planted onto my floor if I hadn't flailed my arms and caught myself on my desk chair. "What is this?" I yelped, a mix of pain and frustration. "How is this even physically possible? It defies physics." Erica let out a genuine laugh this time. "It's called practice, Crystal, and pain tolerance. Try again. Smaller steps. Hips first." I tried again. Concentrating. I took a tiny, mincing step, then another. I was stiff, awkward, like a baby deer on ice. The patent leather squeaked with every tortured movement. I made it to the door, my calves screaming in protest, my toes crushed into the pointed tip of the shoe. I turned around, even more unsteadily, and hobbled back to the bed, collapsing onto it with a groan. "That," I panted, "is a torture device." "It's also a power trip," she countered, walking over to my desk where my mum kept a small makeup bag for emergencies. Erica, of course, had brought her own arsenal. She unzipped a large black case, revealing a terrifying array of powders, creams, pencils, and brushes. "But we're not done. No girl is complete without her face on." She sat me down in my desk chair, tilted my chin up, and began her work. For the next hour, I was her canvas. The process was a methodical, transformative ritual. First came a cool, wet foundation, applied with a sponge. That smelled faintly of chemicals and flowers. It felt like a mask, erasing every pore, every imperfection, every last trace of Andy. Then came the concealer, dabbed under my eyes, followed by a dusting of translucent powder that set everything in place and took away any shine. My skin felt flawless, unnaturally so. She worked on my eyes with the focus of a surgeon. Brushes of varying sizes dusted my eyelids with shimmering shades of bronze and brown, creating a depth and definition that made my blue eyes seem even larger and more luminous. Then came the eyeliner, a sharp, black liquid pen. "Don't move, don't even breathe," she commanded. I held my breath as she drew a precise, winged line along my upper lash line. It tickled, and my eyes watered. But I held perfectly still. The effect was immediate. My eyes looked defined, mysterious, alluring. She finished with 2 coats of mascara, thickening and lengthening my already surprisingly long lashes. Next was blush. A soft pink powder swept onto the apples of my cheeks, giving my face a healthy, innocent glow. And finally, the lips. She outlined them with a pencil, perfecting their shape, then filled them in with a deep, satin finish red lipstick. It felt waxy and heavy. When she was done, she handed me a small hand mirror. I lifted it slowly. The face staring back at me was a work of art. It was the girl from the mirror before, but now she was polished, perfect, and impossibly glamorous. She was a fantasy. She wasn't me. I couldn't find a single trace of Andy in that face. "One last thing," Erica said, pulling a final item from her bag. It was a wig stand, and on it, the blonde hair I now possessed was styled into loose, perfect Hollywood waves. It had been a wig all along. My own hair was just gone, replaced by this. She carefully lifted it off the stand and settled it onto my head. adjusting it so the lace front blended seamlessly with the makeup on my forehead. The weight of it was comforting. In a strange way, it was the final piece of the costume, the final nail in Andy's coffin. I stood up again, more carefully this time. I walked to the full-length mirror, my movements still stilted and awkward on the heels, but less so than before. I was learning. The girl in the mirror was a complete stranger, Crystal, dressed in a stunning blue dress, with flawless makeup, impossibly long blonde hair, and legs that went on for miles in sheer black stockings and killer heels. She was a vision. She was everything Erica had said she would be, Brad's dream girl. "Now do you see?" Erica asked softly, standing behind me. "Now do you see the power you have?" I did see. I saw a weapon, honed and crafted for a single purpose. But as I looked into Crystal's blue eyes, I saw the terror in them, and I knew that the weapon was me. Just before we were about to leave, with me standing awkwardly by the door, like a beautifully decorated but terrified statue, Erica produced one last item. It was a small, elegant glass bottle with a gold atomizer. "Final touch," she said, her voice low and conspiratorial. "You can look the part, you can sound the part, but to really sell it, you have to smell the part." She held the bottle up. The liquid inside was a pale amber. "Brad's a simple man," she explained, a cynical curl to her lip. "He's predictable. He doesn't go for those light, citrusy, fresh out of the shower scents. He likes things that are obvious, sweet, overpowering, even, something that announces itself before you even enter the room." She uncapped the bottle. "This," she said, taking a delicate sniff, "is vanilla, brown sugar, and a hint of something musky and dark. It's called Obsession's Embrace, or some other ridiculous, dramatic name. It's basically dessert in a bottle, and it will drive him absolutely insane. He won't be able to resist it." "Erica, this is all too much," I pleaded, my voice a soft, breathy thing that carried no weight. "The clothes, the makeup. I feel like I'm suffocating. The tight dress, the constricting bra, the painful shoes, the heavy wig, it was a sensory overload. I felt like a doll, assembled and painted and propped up for display." "Good," she said, her lack of sympathy chilling. "Get used to it. Now hold still." Before I could protest further, she spritzed the air in front of me and gently pushed me forward, so I walked through a fine mist of the perfume. It settled onto my skin, my hair, the fabric of my dress. It was exactly as she'd described, an immediate, overwhelming wave of sweetness. It was warm and cloying, a thick blanket of vanilla and sugar that was so potent it was almost tangible. It wasn't just a scent, it was an atmosphere. I took a breath, and the perfume filled my lungs, and that's when something shifted. It wasn't just a smell. It was like a key turning in a lock deep inside my brain. The dizziness from the initial transformation returned for a fleeting second, but this was different. It was less of a physical shift and more of a mental one. The frantic, panicked thoughts that had been screaming inside my head. "This is wrong. Turn me back. I hate this," suddenly grew quiet. They didn't disappear, but their volume was turned way down, muffled as if by a heavy door. In their place, a new set of feelings began to surface. Feelings that were not my own. The scent wasn't just on me. It felt like it was in me, seeping into my consciousness. The cloying sweetness didn't feel suffocating anymore. It felt sensual. The warmth of the vanilla felt comforting. The muskiness at its base felt alluring. My hand, of its own accord, lifted and traced the line of my collarbone, my fingers brushing against my newly smooth skin. The gesture felt natural, flirtatious. I caught my own reflection in the hallway mirror. My eyes seemed to hold a new confidence, a sultry spark that hadn't been there moments before. my lips, painted a deep satin red, were slightly parted. "No," I whispered, but the protest was weak, a ghost of my former self. I don't want this." I was talking to myself, trying to fight back against the wave of alien emotions. I felt like two people were warring for control of my mind. Andy was horrified, recoiling from the seductive pull of this new persona. But Crystal was basking in it. She liked the way the perfume made her feel. She liked the way the dress hugged her curves. Erica watched me, her smile turning predatory and triumphant. She saw the change in my eyes, the shift in my posture. "What did you do?" I asked, my voice barely audible. The question wasn't an accusation anymore. It was a genuine, confused inquiry. "The app doesn't just change your appearance, Andy," she said softly, as if explaining a simple fact of nature. "That would be too easy to fight. It's a full package deal. It rewires the brain's reward centers. It nudges your instincts, your impulses. It makes you receptive to the role you're playing. The perfume, the clothes, the attention you're about to get. They're all just triggers. They activate the new programming." She tapped her temple. "It changes your brain, too." A cold, terrifying clarity washed over me. This wasn't just a costume. It wasn't a prank. This was a hostile takeover. Every element, the lacy underwear, the feel of the silk stockings, the pain of the heels, the sight of my reflection. The scent of this perfume wasn't just for show. They were tools of indoctrination, designed to break down Andy and build up Crystal. I looked down at my hands, at the slender, manicured fingers that looked like they belonged to a stranger. I flexed them. They still obeyed me. But the thought process felt distant. The desire to clench them into a fist was being replaced by an urge to let them rest delicately on my lap. The impulse to run and hide was being supplanted by a strange, budding curiosity to see how people would react to me. To her. "Come on," Erica said, grabbing her keys. "It's time. The party's already started." The car ride was a surreal, silent bubble of vanilla-scented dread. I sat in the passenger seat, hyper-aware of everything. The way the seatbelt cut across my new chest, the way the short dress rode up my thighs, exposing the lacy tops of the stockings. I kept wanting to pull it down, a reflexive gesture of modesty that belonged to Andy. But another part of me, the Crystal part, found a strange power in the display. Erica drove with a focused intensity, occasionally glancing over at me. She wasn't looking at her brother anymore. She was looking at her creation, her weapon, making sure it was primed and ready. "Just remember the plan," she said as we pulled into a street already clogged with cars. Music was thumping from a large house a few doors down. "Find Brad, let him see you. Be mysterious, let him come to you. He will, and when he does, just be charming. Let him do all the work." "I don't know if I can do this," I whispered. My heart was hammering against my ribs, a frantic drumbeat of pure terror. "You can," she said. Turning off the car, she looked me straight in the eye. "Because Andy can't, but Crystal can." She got out of the car. I remained frozen for a moment, my hand on the door handle. I could still refuse. I could refuse to get out. I could make a scene, but the thought felt sluggish, difficult to form. The desire to please Erica, to fulfill the mission, to see the look on Brad's face, it was growing stronger, overriding my own survival instincts. With a deep, shaky breath that was saturated with the scent of vanilla and deception, I opened the car door and stepped out into the night, the stiletto heels sinking slightly into the soft grass of the curb. The party, and the point of no return, was waiting. The night air was cool, but I barely felt it. A strange, feverish heat was radiating from my own skin. The walk from the car to the house was the longest walk of my life. Each click of my heels on the pavement sounded like a countdown. People were milling around on the front lawn, red plastic cups in hand. Their laughter and chatter a dull roar under the bass-heavy music pouring from the open door. As we approached, heads started to turn. First, just a few curious glances, then more overt stares. I saw guys nudge their friends, their conversations faltering. I saw girls look me up and down. Their eyes a mixture of curiosity, appraisal, and in some cases, instant hostility. I was used to being invisible. As Andy, I could move through a crowd like a ghost, but as Crystal, I was a spotlight. Every eye was on me, and the feeling was both terrifying and intoxicating. I felt my shoulders, which I'd been hunching forward in a subconscious attempt to hide, slowly straighten. My chin lifted. The crystal programming was kicking in, responding to the attention like a flower turning to the sun. Erica guided me through the throng on the porch and into the house with a proprietary hand on the small of my back. Inside, it was chaos. The air was thick with the smell of spilled beer, sweat, and cheap weed. Bodies were packed together, moving to the rhythm of a song so loud it vibrated in my bones. For a moment, Andy's claustrophobia flared up. I wanted to bolt, to push my way out and run back to the safety of my room. But then Erica leaned in close, her lips brushing my ear. "He's over there," she whispered, her voice laced with venom. "By the kitchen, holding court, like the king of the douchebags he is." I followed her gaze, and there he was, Brad. He looked exactly like you'd expect. Tall, broad-shouldered, with perfectly coiffed sandy blonde hair and a smile that was probably insured. He was leaning against a counter, a beer in his hand, surrounded by a laughing group of his football buddies. He was telling some story, gesticulating grandly, the center of his own universe. And the sight of him, so confident, so oblivious to the pain he'd caused my sister, sparked a flicker of genuine anger inside me. It was the first Andy emotion I'd felt since the perfume, and it was quickly co-opted by the mission. That's him. A voice in my head that was both mine and not mine whispered, "That's the target." "Go get a drink," Erica instructed. "Mingle near him. Make sure you walk past his line of sight. He'll notice." She gave me a little push, and I was on my own, adrift in a sea of strangers. My legs felt shaky in the heels, but I forced myself to move, putting one foot in front of the other. I walked toward the makeshift bar, set up on the kitchen island, acutely aware of the eyes following my every step. The short blue dress swayed with my hips. The sheer stockings felt like a whispered secret against my skin. I felt like an actress on a stage, playing the role of a lifetime. I reached the kitchen island and poured some anonymous red punch into a cup, my hands trembling slightly. I didn't drink it. I just held it, a prop to make me look like I belonged. I leaned against the counter, trying to appear casual, and risked a glance over at Brad's group. It happened exactly as Erica predicted. One of his friends saw me first. I saw his eyes go wide, and he subtly nudged Brad, nodding in my direction. Brad stopped mid-sentence, his eyes scanning the crowd until they landed on me. He froze. His easy smile faltered for a second, replaced by a look of pure, unadulterated interest. His gaze swept over me, from the blonde hair, down the blue dress, to my legs in the black stockings and heels. It was an invasive, assessing look, and the Andy part of me wanted to shrink away from it, to cover myself up. But the crystal part, she preened under the attention. She felt a jolt of triumph. "He sees me." He said something to his friends, handed off his beer, and started making his way toward me. My heart began to pound, a frantic, terrifying rhythm against my ribs. This was it, the moment of truth. My mind raced. What do I say? What do I do? I can't do this. I'm going to blow it. He's going to know. "I think you're lost," a voice said, smooth as silk. "I'm pretty sure heaven's that way." I turned, and he was there, standing so close I could smell the faint scent of his cologne. A generic, fresh scent that was completely overpowered by my cloud of vanilla. He was even more handsome up close, with a square jaw and startlingly green eyes. The smile he gave me was dazzling, practiced, and utterly predatory. I opened my mouth to say the first thing that came to Andy's mind, which was, "That's the worst pickup line I've ever heard. You colossal tool." But the words wouldn't come. My throat felt tight. The crystal programming took over my vocal cords, filtering my thoughts, twisting my intent. What came out instead was a soft, breathy giggle, a sound I had never made in my life. "Oh, I'm not lost." The sweet melodic voice that was somehow mine said, "I think I'm exactly where I'm supposed to be." My lips curved into a small, mysterious smile. I hadn't told them to do that. Brad's own smile widened. He was hooked. "I'm Brad," he said, extending a hand. "I don't think I've seen you around here before. I definitely would have remembered." I looked at his hand, then back up at his face. The plan was to be aloof, mysterious. I should have just nodded. Maybe ignored the handshake. But my own hand lifted, as if with a will of its own, and slipped into his. His grip was firm, warm. "Crystal," I heard myself say. The name felt strange, and yet, in that moment, completely right. I just moved to town. The lie slipped out effortlessly, a perfect, polished pearl of deception. "Crystal," he repeated, his thumb stroking the back of my hand. The touch sent a jolt, half revulsion, half electric thrill, up my arm. "That's a beautiful name. Well, Crystal, welcome to our humble little party. Can I get you a real drink? This punch is basically sugar water." "No, you can't." I wanted to scream. "Get away from me. You're a cheating scumbag, and my sister hates you." "I'd love that," Crystal cooed, batting her eyelashes. I batted my eyelashes. I didn't even know how to do that. He led me through this crowd, his hand moving from my hand to the small of my back, a gesture that was both possessive and protective. It was the same spot where Erica had touched me, but his touch felt different. It was warmer, more confident, and my body, this traitorous body, seemed to lean into it. He found a bottle of vodka and mixed a drink for me, asking me questions the whole time. Where did I move from? What school was I going to? The lies flowed out of me, a complete fabricated backstory for Crystal. She was from California. Her parents were artists. She was taking a gap year to find herself. Every word was a betrayal of who I was, and every word sounded utterly convincing. The music shifted to something slower, a throbbing, bass-heavy R&B track. Brad leaned in closer, his voice dropping. "So, Crystal from California," he murmured, his breath warm against my ear. "Do you dance?" Andy Thompson did not dance. Andy Thompson had the coordination of a newborn giraffe. So, the thought of dancing, in these shoes, in this dress, in front of all these people, was my own personal version of hell. "No," I tried to say, but my head was already nodding. "I might," Crystal's voice purred. "If I have the right partner." That was all the encouragement he needed. He took my cup, placed it on the counter, and led me to the center of the living room, which was now serving as a makeshift dance floor. He turned to face me and pulled me close. His one hand rested firmly on my hip. The other enveloped my hand. My free hand came to rest on his shoulder, the fabric of his shirt feeling coarse beneath my fingertips. This was it. The point of no return. I was in the arms of the enemy, the boy I was supposed to be destroying, and my body was responding to him. The music pulsed through the floor, up through the soles of my painful heels, and into me. Brad started to move, a slow, confident sway, and I had no choice but to move with him. My hips, the ones that had been so foreign to me just hours ago, seemed to know exactly what to do, moving in perfect time with his. His face was close to mine. I could see the flecks of gold in his green eyes. He smelled of cologne and beer and confidence, and he was looking at me like I was the only person in the world. "He's a cheater," Andy screamed from the far off, muffled room in my mind. "He's a user. Remember Erica. Remember the plan." But the music was too loud. The perfume was too sweet. His hand was too warm on my back. He leaned in, his lips brushing against my ear again. "You are incredible," he whispered. "Seriously, where have you been all my life?" I should have pushed him away. I should have slapped him. I should have said something devastatingly witty and cruel to put him in his place. Instead, I tilted my head back, looked him in the eyes, and smiled a slow, devastating smile that belonged entirely to Crystal. "Waiting for you, I guess." I heard myself breathe, and in that moment, as he smiled back, a triumphant, possessive smile, I knew I was in deep, deep trouble. I wasn't just playing a part anymore. The role was starting to play me. The rest of the night blurred into a surreal, vanilla-scented haze. The line between Andy's horror and Crystal's triumph dissolved into a murky, confusing twilight. I danced with Brad for what felt like hours. He never let me go, his hand always on my back, my hip, my arm, staking his claim in front of the entire party. I saw Erica across the room at one point, watching us. She had a look of pure, vindictive glee on her face. She raised her cup in a silent toast. Mission accomplished. But it didn't feel like a mission anymore. It felt real. Brad was a fantastic conversationalist when he wanted to be. He was charming, funny, and he listened to Crystal's every word with rapt attention, his eyes never leaving my face. He made Crystal feel like the most fascinating person he'd ever met. The Andy part of me knew it was a line, a practiced routine he'd probably used 100 times, but the Crystal part of my brain, the part that was now firmly in the driver's seat, soaked it up like a sponge. He bought me another drink. He introduced me to his friends, a blur of faces and names I immediately forgot. He showed me off like a trophy. "Guys, this is Crystal," he'd say, a proud arm around my waist. "Can you believe her?" And they'd all look at me with awe, and Brad would puff out his chest, and a treacherous part of me felt a flicker of pride. At some point, he led me out to the backyard for some air. The chaos of the party faded behind us, replaced by the chirping of crickets and the cool night sky. We sat on a porch swing that creaked gently. "So," he said, turning to look at me, his expression more serious now. "For real, what's your story?" "Crystal." My mind raced, trying to keep the fabricated narrative straight. "I told you," I said, my voice soft. "California girl, looking for a change of scenery." "I don't know," he mused, his gaze intense. "There's something else about you, something so different. You're not like the other girls around here." "You have no idea," I thought, a hysterical laugh bubbling in my chest. He reached out and tucked a stray strand of my blonde wig behind my ear. His fingers brushed against my cheek, and my skin tingled at the contact. It was a gentle, almost tender gesture that felt dangerously intimate. "I feel like I've been waiting for someone like you to show up," he said, his voice low and sincere. The raw, unfiltered hatred I'd felt for him earlier was completely gone, replaced by a dizzying cocktail of fear, excitement, and a terrifying, burgeoning affection. The programming Erica had talked about wasn't a gentle nudge anymore. It was a full-blown mind control. I knew, on a deep, fundamental level, that this was wrong. This was the guy who broke my sister's heart. He was the enemy. But my body, my emotions, my very instincts were screaming that he was not. They were screaming that he was charming, handsome, and that I wanted him to kiss me. And then he did. He leaned in slowly, giving me every chance to pull away. I didn't. I couldn't. My body was frozen, caught between Andy's screaming internal no and Crystal's breathless, eager yes. His lips met mine. They were soft, warm, and tasted faintly of vodka and mint. It wasn't a rough, drunken kiss. It was surprisingly gentle, exploratory. And my own lips, these new red-painted lips, responded to his without any conscious command from me. They softened, parted, and kissed him back. A jolt went through me, a shockwave of pure, unfiltered sensation. It was my first kiss, Andy's first kiss, and it was with my sister's cheating ex-boyfriend, while I was trapped in the body of a girl. The sheer wrongness of it was cataclysmic, but the physical reality of it was overwhelming. A warmth spread through my chest, a dizzying, lightheaded feeling that had nothing to do with the alcohol. When he pulled back, his green eyes were dark with emotion. "Wow," he breathed. I couldn't speak. I could only stare at him, my heart hammering against my ribs. The war in my head was over. Crystal had won. "Come on," he said, standing up and taking my hand. "Let's get out of here. This party's dead anyway." "No, this is where it ends." Andy's voice pleaded from its distant prison. "You did the job. You hooked him. Now you leave. You go home." But my legs were already moving. My hand held firmly in his. He led me away from the party, away from the house, away from the one person who could possibly save me, Erica. I didn't even look back. We walked down the street, my heels clicking on the pavement, his arm now securely around my shoulders. He led me to his truck, a massive black pickup that was obnoxiously large, and helped me in, his hand on my back. As he drove, the streetlights painted fleeting stripes of light across his face. I just watched him, my mind a complete blank. The part of me that was Andy had gone silent, beaten into submission. All that was left was Crystal, a girl who had just met the boy of her dreams, a girl who had just had the most incredible first kiss of her life. He didn't drive me home. I didn't even know where home was for Crystal. He drove to a scenic overlook on the edge of town, a place notorious as a makeout spot. He parked the truck, the engine ticking as it cooled, and turned to me. The silence was thick with unspoken intention. I don't remember what we talked about. I don't remember how it happened. It was a blur of soft words, gentle touches, and more kisses that grew deeper and more passionate. Every touch, every kiss, felt like it was cementing Crystal's reality and erasing Andy's. I was drowning, and I wasn't even fighting it anymore. I was letting the current take me. The last thing I remember clearly is him whispering her name. "Crystal," he murmured against my neck, his voice thick with desire, and my own voice, a sweet, willing whisper, answered him. The first thing I registered was the light. A bright, unforgiving morning sun was streaming through the slats of some unfamiliar blinds, slicing across my face. The second thing was a dull, throbbing ache in my head, a definite hangover. The third was a deeper, more pervasive soreness that seemed to be settled in my bones, in muscles I didn't even know I had. My body felt used, heavy, and exhausted. My eyes fluttered open. I wasn't in my room. I was in a large, messy bedroom that smelled of stale beer, laundry, and Brad's cologne. Football posters and pennants adorned the walls. I was in his room. Panic, cold and sharp, pierced through the fog in my brain. It was a pure, undiluted Andy feeling, the first one in what felt like an eternity. What happened? How did I get here? I sat up, a wave of dizziness washing over me. The sheet pulled around my waist. I looked down. I was still wearing the black lace lingerie. The blue dress was in a crumpled heap on a chair across the room. Next to the discarded stockings and the killer heels, my wig was on the nightstand, its blonde waves slightly tangled, looking like a bizarre scalp sitting on the wood. My own hair, whatever it was now, was short and matted to my head. My body. It was still the girl's body. The soft skin, the slim waist, the curve of my hips, the fullness of my chest. It hadn't worn off. The app hadn't been on a timer. The horror of it all came crashing back down on me, more potent than before. This was real. This had happened. My memory of the night was fragmented, like a shattered mirror. I remembered the party, the dancing, the kiss at the overlook. And then, flashes, snatches of sensation, whispered words, the feeling of his hands on me, of my own traitorous body responding. My stomach churned with a mixture of shame, fear, and utter self-loathing. I had to get out. I had to get out now. I swung my legs over the side of the bed, my movements clumsy and sore. I needed to find my clothes, find my phone, call Erica, and make her fix this. I had to become Andy again. I had to scrub this entire night, this entire identity, from my skin. Just as my feet touched the floor, a heavy arm snaked around my waist, pulling me back against a warm, solid chest. Good morning. A sleepy voice mumbled into my hair. Brad. He was awake. I froze, every muscle in my body tensing. My throat went dry. I tried to scream, to shove him off, to yell, "Get off of me!" But my vocal cords betrayed me once again. The programming was still there, dormant, but not gone. "'Smorning," a tiny, timid voice squeaked out. It was barely a sound. He nuzzled my neck, his morning stubble scratching against my sensitive skin. "You were amazing last night. Crystal," he murmured, his voice husky. He squeezed my waist gently. "Don't go. Stay." The panic was rising. A frantic, desperate wave. I had to fight it. I had to reclaim myself. I closed my eyes, concentrating all my willpower, trying to force my own voice, my own thoughts, to the surface. "I am Andy. My name is Andy Thompson. This isn't me." But as I was fighting this silent internal battle, my eyes drifted to the large dresser mirror across the room. I could see our reflection. Brad, big and masculine, holding me from behind, and me, a pale, slender girl with wide, terrified blue eyes and short, messy hair. The image was so jarring, so completely wrong, that it shattered my concentration. Brad's voice, soft and possessive, whispered in my ear, "Morning, gorgeous." I opened my mouth, ready to scream, to fight, to rage against him, against Erica, against this whole nightmare. And then I saw it, in the mirror. The reflection's expression changed. The terror in her eyes faded, replaced by something soft. Something happy. Her lips, pale without the lipstick but still full and feminine, curved upwards into a gentle, sleepy smile. She wasn't looking at Brad in the reflection. She was looking at me, at the real me, trapped somewhere inside. And as I watched in silent, soul-crushing horror, the reflection, this girl named Crystal, mouthed a single, silent word to me. "Mine." Brad tightened his embrace. "You okay?" he asked. I wanted to yell for help. I wanted to cry. I wanted to break the mirror and claw my way out of this body. But the voice that answered him was not mine. It was light. It was sweet. It was hers. "I'm perfect," she said, leaning her head back against his shoulder. "Good morning, honey."